Let's get some analysis on this. Colin Clarke is Senior Research Fellow at the Soufan Center and joins us live from Pittsburgh in Philadelphia. Appreciate you taking time to speak with us here on TRT World. Firstly, I'd like to get your reaction to the $1 billion in pledges made at the UN's event in Geneva on Monday and the Taliban's request that it comes without strings attached.
Well, it's great that the international community has pledged that much money. The question becomes, does the international community actually deliver on that money that's promised? Too often we see a large sum promised, but at the end of the day, what's actually delivered is quite different. In terms of the Taliban demanding that aid be furnished with no strings attached, that's rubbish. The Taliban needs to meet a certain criteria or list of demands where, the international community is not obliged to simply fund a government that is going to carry out human rights abuses. It doesn't work like that. And so I think the Taliban needs a wake-up call to recognize that if it is going to receive the aid it's so dependent upon, it's got to change its own behavior. And I'm skeptical about that.
Global leaders have repeatedly suggested they don't trust the Taliban but are willing to work with the group. Just on Tuesday, the EU's foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, told the European Parliament that, quote, to have any chance of influencing events, we have no other option but to engage with the Taliban. Does this suggest to you that the Taliban is en route to receiving the legitimacy it wants?
It very well might be. And I think, in that sense, the Taliban is correct because the international community, the United States, the EU, there is no other option. The United States lost the war. The Taliban won. The next step becomes how do we figure out, how to, move forward with some kind of semblance of a functioning government, because the real victims are the Afghan people. The Taliban aren't victims, far from it. So, we've got to come up with a workable solution that allows the Taliban, the Afghan people, the international community, and all of those countries, including countries like Qatar and Turkey that are supporting the current government of Afghanistan, to feel like they're not being shortchanged either. A lot of countries are putting out a lot, they're risking a lot, but what are they getting in return? That's unclear to me right now.
You've directed studies on the future of terrorism. Are global relations with the Taliban setting a bad precedent for negotiating with designated terror groups, you think?
Well, I think the whole notion that we don't negotiate with terrorists is a misnomer, frankly. We negotiate with terrorists all the time. And we have so, we've done so throughout history. You could look at the Irish Republican Army in Northern Ireland, the African National Congress in South Africa, the Taliban, a perfect example. We constantly negotiate with terrorists. We need to recognize that these are non-state actors that are part of the political process. I think the entire conflict, the U.S. understood it was going to have to negotiate with the Taliban at some point. The only problem was Washington didn't realize that the Taliban would be the only entity it would be negotiating with. There was always some kind of vision that the Taliban would form part of a power-sharing agreement or arrangement. But because Afghan National Security Forces collapsed so quickly, the Taliban were able to seize control. And really now, that's the only option. That's the only party in town.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Colin Clarke at the Soufan Center. Once again, thank you for your time.